He sat beside the fire with crooked hands. The elder who had sailed in younger years, who'd fought on 7 shores across the lands, and carried all of it without his tears. The young men came to him with burning eyes, with questions forged in eagerness and pride. He answered slowly, watching how time flies, and told them what the decades had supplied. The elder speaks from where the young can't see, from past the horizon of what youth can be. He said, the bravest thing I ever did was not the battle where I lost my hand, was not the storm that nearly closed the lid on everything I'd built and loved and planned. The bravest thing was when I chose to stop, when I saw the raid was wrong and said it loud, when I walked back from the blade's last drop and bore the name of coward from the crowd. The elder's bravest deed was knowing when to stop and stand alone among the men. He said, the sea is not your enemy. It does not hate you, does not wish you ill. It simply is what it has always been, indifferent, cold, and older than your will. The sailor who fights the ocean always loses. The one who learns to work with what it gives, who takes the wind as generously it chooses, is the one who sails the longest and who lives. Make the sea your partner, not your foe, and it will carry you where you need to go. He said, love fiercely everything you touch, the ship, the blade, the hand that holds yours tight. For nothing stays as long as we need much, and morning comes before you're done with night. I wasted years in anger at my losses, in pride that kept me from the ones I loved. I counted up the gains and all the costs, when I should have been holding, not begrudged. The elder's deepest lesson is to hold what's warm before it turns to stone and cold. He died that winter with his hand in mine, the fire burning low beside his chair. He said one word and crossed the final line, and left the room with something less so there. I kept his knife and wear it at my side, not as a weapon, but a kind of thread, a connection to his weathered, patient guide, a conversation with the honored dead. elder lives inside the things he left, and those who carry them are not bereft. It comes without announcement in the night, a white and silent visitor to the grass. The world transformed before the morning light, each blade of green encased in frozen glass. The farmers rose and cursed and checked the stores. The children laughed and drew their names in white. The elders nodded, closed their longhouse doors, and said, "Now we prepare for winter's fight." The first frost is the year's most honest word, the harshest truth that summer's end has stirred. We slaughtered what we could not feed through cold, the salt barrels filled with autumn's sacrifice. The smoked fish hung in rows from rafters old, the root store packed with everything precise. Each family counted up its winter share and measured it against the months ahead. And those who found the numbers thin and bare were helped by those with something more instead. The village shares its surplus or it dies. Community is how the Viking survives. The hunting changed when frost had stiffened ground, the tracks more clear and white than mud before, the prey more desperate, easier to be found, the predator with sharper edge in store. We followed deer prints through the silver wood, the bow held steady in the frozen air, and what we caught in autumn turning good was meat enough to last the cold despair. The hunter's art is perfected in the frost, when ground speaks truth of what has passed and crossed. The children of the frost are hard and bright, they do not bruise as easily as south. They know the value of the fire's light and taste the sweetness of warmth in their mouth. Adversity is what the North provides, in generous and never-ending measure. It forges those who live within its tides into something harder than all treasure. The frost makes nothing soft soft and nothing weak. It makes the iron will the people seek. When old men feel the first frost in their bones, before the air outside has told the news, they sit inside beside their hearthstone thrones and let the warmth remind them what they choose. To live another winter cold and long, to watch the snow arrive and then depart, to add another verse to the same old song of survival written in the northern heart. The first frost is the year's most honest word, and those who hear it living are most stirred. He stands where rainbow meets the iron sky, where Asgard's gate looks out on all 9 worlds. His golden teeth flash bright as years go by, his Jalahorn still coiled in silver curls. He needs less sleep than any bird in flight. His hearing catches grass grow on the hill. He sees 100 miles through blackest night, and watches every threshold, door and still. Heimdall waits for what he hopes will not come, the day when silence breaks and all goes numb. They say he fathered all of humankind. He walked among the mortals in disguise. He left his gifts in every class we find, in Thrall and Karl and Jarl beneath the skies. To each he gave a different kind of grace, the strength of arms, the wisdom of the mind, the beauty that adorns the noble face, and left his mark in all of humankind. Heimdall is the father of us all, from the highest hall to the lowest hall. He stole the necklace back from slippery Loki, 2 seals upon the ocean's rocky floor. The fight was fast and absolutely pokey, but Heimdall bore the Brisingum and more. He brought it dripping back to Freya's door, and laid it at her feet without a word. She clasped wrapped it round her neck as once before, and thanked him with a glance that spoke not stir. The watchman guards more than the golden gate. He guards the beauty of the world from fate. The horn has never sounded in our age. Its voice kept locked inside the coil bronze. But those who listen to the wind's old rage can sometimes hear it echo in the ponds. A distant note that carries on the gale, a single tone that fills the hollow chest. A sound too large for any human scale, that stirs the deepest and the most at rest. The horn already sounds inside the brave. Each warrior had a horn before the grave. When Ragnarok's first footsteps shake the ground, when Loki breaks his chains and Fenrir wakes, when Searcher's fire begins its warming sound, then Heimdall lifts the horn for all our sakes. That note will reach from Midgard to the deep, from Hell's cold hall to Asgard's highest dome. And every warrior will shake off sleep and rise to fight the last and final home. The horn sounds once and all the brave arise and meet their glorious end beneath the skies. East of Midgard past the darkness deep, the iron forest stands on blackened ground, where metal trees in iron silence keep their iron leaves that never make a sound. No bird will nest inside those iron boughs, no squirrel runs along those rigid limbs. The only life that iron forest allows are the she-wolves born along its hollow rims. The iron forest breeds the darkness whole, a place where something hungers for the soul. The old giantess who rules the ironwood has bred the wolves that will devour the sun and moon and stars, as she as always would, until the last of all the lights is done. She tends her wolves with iron gauntleted care. She feeds them on the flesh of those who stray beyond the boundaries of the world's fair share, too deep into the dark to find the day. The iron forest is where daylight ends, where every light eventually bends. We do not sail near the iron shore. The compasses go strange and stars go dim. The ravens turn back from that eastern door, and even brave men pause upon the rim. But once a generation someone goes, a fool or hero, neither sure which one, who needs to see what only darkness knows, who needs the truth of what cannot be undone. The iron forest calls the reckless brave, and shows them something past the farthest way. Old Sigrid went there as a girl of 10. She followed a white wolf into the gray, and walked back out 3 days and nights, and then, with iron in her eyes and something to say, she never told a single soul she met what she had seen inside the iron dark. She only smiled and said she'd not forget, and carried something burning like a spark. The iron forest leaves a mark inside, a knowledge too immense to let reside. The iron forest reminds us of the cost of every dawn that rises warm and clear, that somewhere in the dark what light has lost is gathered in the wolves that we should fear. We value dawn because the iron night exists beyond the limits of the known. We kindle fires to hold against the bite of what grows in the darkness on its own. Yard and thither breeds the wolves that test the light, and dawn is sweeter knowing of the night. The pass was 3 days up through snow and stone, a cut between the mountains barely wide, enough for 2 men carrying their own, to pass each other on the frozen side. We went in summer when the snow was thin, the rocks slick underneath with meltwater. The mountain goats observed us from within, their yellow eyes above the slaughter. The mountain pass asks everything of legs, and gives in return the view that never begs. At the summit we could see both worlds at once, the fjord land dropping west to Silver Sea, the forest spreading east, the land of hunts, and far between them everything could be. The wind up there made no accommodation, it hit from every side without a warning. It had no patience for our observation, but we stood still despite the cold and scorning. The summit view is worth a burning leg. It puts the world in proper scale and peg. We carried everything on our own backs. No horse could manage what the past demanded. We learned the weight of everything in tracks, of what was needed and what could be stranded. The iron we brought was worth the weight of pain. The food was rationed to the bare minimum. The furs we needed to return again, the rest was left behind as premium. The mountain pass teaches what truly matters, by making you carry it till comfort shatters. Coming down the eastern side we found a people we had never seen before. Their language strange, their customs tied and bound in ways that we had never met before. We traded cautiously with signs and gifts. We showed our iron, they showed amber beads. We learned that every mountain summit lifts a veil between two differently shaped creeds. The mountain pass connects what oceans part. Two peoples finding common place in art. We crossed the pass 3 times in all those years. Each time the route familiar but not tame. Each time the summit met us with fresh fears. Each time the view was somehow not the same. The past does not repeat itself exactly. The mountain shifts with season, light and year. What seemed familiar proves itself inexactly, and keeps the traveler humble and held clear. Cross the same mountain twice and learn this truth: the world renews itself in age and youth. They called him Orm, the serpent on the sea, for no man ever crossed the wave as fast. His longship seemed to move like it was free, of water's pull, of wind, of mast and past. He read the ocean like a written page. He each swell a sentence, every current line. He navigated by an older sage than stars or sun, the sea's own deep design. The Serpent King moves through the water skin, as if the sea itself had let him in. He took his first ship out at 14 years, a borrowed vessel crewed with doubtful men. He brought them all back safely through their fears, and never borrowed anyone's ship again. He built his fleet from every ray's return, each new ship longer, faster, fiercer made, each hull a lesson learned from what would burn, each bow a new iteration of the trade. The shipbuilder learns from every previous run, each vessel better than the former one. His enemies called him the Seaborn Ghost, for he appeared and vanished in the mist. A fog and dawn, and what the sea loved most, the hour when direction is dismissed. He struck at the impossible approach, the cliffside landing in the darkest night. The shallow ford no other dared encroach, the angle every other ship thought tight. The Serpent King finds every weakness through the path no other captain ever knew. Old age found him not slow, but rather still, a stillness of the man who needs no more, who has already bent his iron will against everything the sea has kept in store. He sat beside the ships he built and loved, and watched the young men take them out to sea, and felt the satisfaction of one shoved by time into a peaceful reverie. The Serpent King at rest is something rare, a man who fought the ocean fair and square. They buried him inside his greatest ship, the one he'd built at 50, proud and long. They sealed him in with furs and ambergris, and let the fire take him with the song. The serpent ship became the serpent grave. The sea received what sea had always made, and dawn returned to where the currents gave the water borne back to the blue cascade. The Serpent King goes back into the deep, where serpents and the whale road always sleep. There's a ship that sails the outer dark, Beyond the edge of every charted lane, its hull is black as coal without a mark, its sails sewn from the absence of the main. No crew is seen aboard its open deck, no lantern hangs to guide it through the night. No oar breaks water, nothing on the neck of the prow, nothing catches any light. The black ship sails itself toward its aim, and no one who has followed it came back to claim. Sailors from our village saw it once, at the horizon's very edge at dusk. They pointed and they argued for the months about the meaning of its blackened husk. One said it was the ship of Odin's dead, returning to the place where spirits go. One said it was a warning to be read against sailing past the boundary low. The third said nothing, only watched it sail, and died the following winter, thin and pale. The helmsman who has sailed the outer edge says nothing waits beyond the world's last rim, that those who push beyond the final edge find the same sea stretching dark and dim. But even he grew quiet when we asked about the black ship seen at evening's gate. His usual confidence half unmasked, he said some things you simply contemplate. The best helmsman keeps a silence about some things. The deep sea holds a mystery that stings. Perhaps the black ship is the self at last, the part of us that sails beyond control, the piece that slips the anchor of the past and moves towards something larger than the whole. We all contain a vessel in the dark that pulls toward the horizon of the deep, that cannot be extinguished like a spark, that we have tried and failed to put to sleep. The black ship is the soul's own restless keel that will not stop for anything we feel. Do not pursue the black ship if you see it. Let it sail past and keep your own course true. The ones who chase the darkness will not free it. The darkness only swallows those who pursue. But know that it exists, that something vast moves through the waters of the world at night, that not all mystery is meant to last inside the comfortable circle of the light. The black ship sails for all of us one day, and on that day we simply sail away. After every saga has been told, after every longship has grown still, after every warrior young and old has climbed his last and unforgiving hill, the world remains the same essential thing. The sea still cold, the stars still cold above, the raven still describing its white ring, the north wind still insisting on its love. The world endures past every human song and asks us simply, where do you belong? The Viking answer was not in the hall, not in the silver piled upon the floor, not even in the gods who rise and fall, but in the choosing to go out once more, to choose the sea when shore was safe and warm, to choose the unknown over known and still, to choose to walk directly into storm, and trust that something waits beyond the hill. The Viking answer to the world is go into the vast and beautiful unknown. The world that remains when we are done will not remember names or individual deeds. The sea will have forgotten every run, the soil grown over all our carved-in creeds. But the spirit of the choosing will persist in those who after us still feel the pull of the horizon turning in the mist of the empty sea that calls the heart to full. The Viking spirit is not name or place, it is the hunger for the open space. So we have sung these songs across the dark, from the first fierce verse to this, the last. Each one a rune, each one a living spark, connecting present to the glorious past. We sang the gods and giants, sea and stone, the shield maiden and the healer's knowing hand, the second son who sailed the world world alone. The farmer breaking frozen northern land. We sang the whole of what the North has been, the seen and heard and felt, and yet unseen. Now raise the final cup above the fire. Speak every name you carry in your chest, the living and the gone, the low, the higher, the ones who tried and those who tried their best. The long ship waits for no one and for all. The whale road opens every single spring. The North Star holds its place beyond the fall. And somewhere someone lifts their voice to sing. The world that remains is enough and more for those with heart enough to find its shore. We gathered at the water's foaming edge, before the oars were shipped and anchors raised. Each man made his own particular pledge to gods and kin and everything he'd praised. The helmsman spoke the words for all to hear. He called on Thor to keep the storm at bay, on Njord to hold the current open clear, on Odin's ravens guiding every day. The whale road prayer is older than the ship. It steadies every hand and every grip. Ho, 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 ho. He poured the mead across the prow's carved tongue, the dark red liquid running to the sea. He sang a verse his own great father sung, a melody as old as being free. The crew stood silent with their heads bent low, not out of weakness but of honest weight, of knowing what the open water knows, that nothing on the sea is ever fate. The prayer is not a guarantee of life, it is the gathering before the strife. My father prayed each morning on the deck, a private conversation low and clear. He'd press his hand against the dragon neck and speak of things he'd never let us hear. asked him once what he said to the wood. He smiled and said, I thank it for last night, and ask it for tomorrow if it would. He said, the ship decides, not me, what's right. The sailor prays to ship as much as God, for both decide the path across the road. The whale road stretches past all human sight. It holds more death than any battlefield. More cold, more dark, more absolute midnight than any enemy with sword and shield. And yet we pray to cross it not in fear, but in the spirit of the grateful guest who knows the ocean lets us travel here, and earns our deepest and most honest best. The whale road prayer names what cannot be named, the vast indifferent sea that leaves us claimed. Pray for those who sail without return, who spoke their words and pushed the prow to foam, whose lanterns on the water still burn, somewhere between the going and the home. The whale road takes them but does not forget the prayer they spoke against its cold embrace. Those words still travel on the current, yet still finding the divine in open space. The whale road prayer echoes past the grave and speaks the name of every Viking brave. The fjord breathes slowly when the ice moves in. The cliffs on either side grow white and still. The water thickens at its darkened skin, and silence fills the space between each hill. No oar can break this surface smooth as slate. No longship hull will find the water here. The fjord closes like a winter gate and holds the world in cold from year to year. The fjord in winter is a different world, with every living sound and color furled. The ice speaks in the night with cracks and groans, a language of expansion and the cold. The pressure building through the frozen the way we listen to a restless elder who has to speak despite the given price, who holds too much to let the silence melt here. The ice at night reveals what silence hides, the pressure that beneath all stillness rides. The children ran across the frozen face, their leather shoes on ice, a scraping bright. They fell and slid and laughed inside the space that summer made impossible despite. The fjord that swallowed ships in open sea now held the smallest child on its back. The transformation from the wild to free, from deadly deep to playground without crack. The frozen fjord is the sea made safe, a brief and brittle truce with no more chafe. We carve the ice for water and for cold. We stored it in the earth beneath the hull to keep the butter fresh and meat controlled through summer's heat before the autumn's fall. The winter gave us what the summer needs. The fjord's ice preserved the summer feast. The cold that killed became the cold that feeds. The circle turning never, never cease. The Viking wastes no season and no cold. Each gift of winter's worth its weight in gold. The thaw comes always in the end of things, a crack and groan and then a rushing sound. The fjord breaks open wide and spreads its wings, and water fills what ice had tightly bound. The longships slide back into their element. The oars rise dripping from their winter rest. The crews return with purpose newly bent toward the horizon, calling from the west. The fjord thaws and Viking hearts unlock. The sea road opens past the winter's block. She knew the yarrow from the frozen field, the willow bark that cooled the raging heat, the mushroom circles that the forest sealed, the moss that kept a wound from its defeat. While men brought glory home in iron and blood, she brought the living back from fever's edge. She worked the herbs into a saving mud, and kept the village from the burial ledge. The healer healer saves more lives than any blade. With knowledge earned, not given or displayed. She learned from watching first and asking then. From women older, sharper, gone before, who passed the knowledge on to willing men, and women who would carry and restore. The apprenticeship of healing took 5 years, 5 winters learning what each plant could give, 5 summers earning trust through patience, fears, until she knew enough to let them live. The healer's art demands a decade's debt before the hand is ready and well set. They brought her warriors broken from the field, men too far gone for any prayer to find, who'd given everything and would not yield, but left their living body behind. She worked through nights without a break for sleep. She cleaned and sewed and drained and wrapped and held. She bargained with the death that stalked the deep, and sometimes won back what the darkness felt. The healer fights the night-long battle too, against the death that comes for those she knew. She could not save them all and knew it plain. The ones too far, the wounds too deep and wide. She learned to hold their hands against the pain, and walk with them part way to the other side. The skill of letting go is learned the hard, through watching what no herb and no art saves, through keeping vigil in the final yard between the living hall and winter graves. The healer learns the limit of her art and finds the grace to tend the breaking heart. Name her beside the warriors in the song, the woman with the willow and the knife. She fought a different battle all day long, and gave the village back its daily life. For every man who swung the axe and came back home to tell his story at the feast, the healer's hands had worked without a name to make the return possible. At least the healer's name belongs beside the brave. She kept as many warriors from the grave.